Greetings, warriors. My name is Pruitii, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Mom, where we dive into learning about the wonders of life, mental health, and self-care. It's been a little bit since the last episode. I apologize. I had microphone issues, but they are taken care of, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. Fingers crossed. But in today's episode, we are going to talk about decisions and decision making, and I will probably be going on a tangent about ADHD things because ADHD plays a wonderful hand in decisions. So it's kind of just a big conglomerate of an episode, I hope you get comfy, make sure you get a drink, and let's dive into talking about decisions. So we all make decisions every single day. Every single day. You made the decision to click on this, and I am very happy you did. You should also make the decision to click on the subscribe button. Oh, that felt bad to say. But we all make decisions and can't escape that. It kind of sucks sometimes to make those decisions, doesn't it? Some decisions are super easy, and some of them are kind of hard. But what makes a decision hard, easy, everything in between? Let's learn about that. So, researchers at Cornell University estimate we make about 226 decisions on food every day. Just food. 226 decisions on average. That is so many decisions. It's incomprehensible. But oh wait, there's more. As we grow and we have more responsibilities on our plate, the number of decisions we make also increases. It's estimated that the average adult makes about 35,000 decisions every day. It kills me. And these are like remotely conscious ones, meaning that there was some thought put into it, not like your brain deciding that you need to breathe or anything like that. It's more of like there's some thought into it. And it's crazy, isn't it? 35,000 decisions every day. And every one of those decisions carries a consequence, whether it's a good consequence or a bad consequence. It's overwhelming. And as I've mentioned, some of them are easy, some of them are hard. Like, for example, somebody might think deciding what to watch on TV is easy after days of work, or deciding what they're going to cook in the kitchen is easy. I don't find that easy. I find it very hard to figure out what I want to do at the end of the day, and I find it very hard to decide what meals we are going to have as a family in the household. Like, that is hard. It's hard for me. But why is it hard for me? Why do we sometimes struggle with something that we do about 35,000 times every single day? Obviously, the numbers ramped up over the years as we've grown, but something we do for about 35,000 times a day, don't you think we would be pretty good at it by now? Well, fortunately, there aren't. And there's things that make decision-making hard. Well, let's talk about those, yeah? One of the first things that make decision-making hard is stress. We all know the lovely beast we call stress. And to understand how stress makes an impact on your decision-making, we're going to talk about your brain. Your noggin. The prefrontal cortex is a part of our brain that is in charge of so many different things. It's in charge of attention, it's in charge of thought organization, goal setting, planning, and self-control. It is so vitally important to our existence as humans. It's one of the things that sets us apart from other mammals is our prefrontal cortex. It is an amazing and beautiful part of our brain. However, stress really impacts our prefrontal cortex. If you watched my Cult of the Lamb video, you deserve a gold star. But in that video, I talked about the prefrontal cortex there, and how it plays a role in burnout and so many other things in your life. And I also talked about gray matter. I don't want to dive too much into gray matter, but the basics of what you need to know about gray matter is that it is vital for the health of your prefrontal cortex. And stress literally starts eating away your gray matter. It damages your prefrontal cortex. Stress has the impact on decision making outside of like, oh my God, how am I going to affect others with this decision, yada, yada, yada. The external stress, it physically alters your brain because of how much stress you're under. So it's important to keep that in mind. Stress really can hamper decision making skills. It can also kind of affect your memory too. Certain neurotransmitters are emanated from your brain, and neurotransmitters, for the people who, aren't into psychology like me, are just the signals your brain sends to have things done. So chemicals like dopamine is a neurotransmitter, and dopamine, makes you happy, or expresses that, you feel happiness when you have dopamine. That's what I'm trying to get at. But when we are under stress, our brains release those neurotransmitters that change the functioning of our prefrontal cortex and also our memory centers, meaning our prefrontal cortex is not going to run optimally on top of the gray matter being affected, and our memories can be affected as well. They could not be stored properly. It's scary how much stress can really affect your brain and your decision-making skills. I mean, stress can do so much more. And later on in this podcast series, we will be talking about stress and how to manage it and how to let it not control your life. Because no human being deserves to be under stress 24/7. We just don't function that way. So that's how stress can make decisions hard. Let's talk about another factor that makes decisions hard, and that is called decision fatigue. It's pretty cut and simple. Decision fatigue. It's when you're tired of making decisions. So Natasha Duke, a registered psychotherapist, says decision fatigue is a phenomenon as opposed to a diagnosable medical condition where more decisions a person makes over the course of a day, the more physically, mentally, and emotionally depleted they become. Think about it. I know this happens to me all of the time. At the end of the day, once I get my child tucked into bed, I have no more work that needs to be done, I am just tired. I have made so many decisions in the day and I'm so tired. But it happens a lot, especially when we have to make so many decisions every day. Decision fatigue can onset when you're in the middle of a difficult life situation. It can onset when you are perfectionist. Hi, perfectionists. I'm just like you. It's exhausting to fight my brain on not being perfect all of the time. Also, the number of decisions you make every day, especially if they are numerous and quick decisions at the same time. Like in the span of like 10 minutes, you have to make constant quick decisions. Kind of like, maybe if you were a sports player and you were just constantly making decisions over and over and over again because you're like trying to win the game or whatever, and you're in a high active sport. A lot of it is instinct at that point, but like there's decisions making as well. But all of those things can really exhaust your brain. It's thankfully acute, meaning that it's short-lived. It won't happen all of the time. Some days will be easier than others, and some days you're just like exhausted at the end of the day from making so many decisions. But if this happens to you every single day, you might have something more chronic going on. So please be mindful. Please keep an eye on how many days you feel decision fatigue, and potentially if If it's every day and for extended periods of time, please seek help. Whether that be through a therapist, whether that be through a doctor, a psychiatrist, anything like that. Please, you don't deserve to have decision fatigue for that long. But ways that we can recoup from decision fatigue is delegating tasks, if possible, learning how to manage your stress, which we'll talk about at a later time in the podcast series, making time for self-care, and built-in downtime. Built-in downtime doesn't mean time to just zonk out on your phone, scrolling social media. No, built-in downtime is where you're getting into a comfortable place where you don't need to make any decisions and you could just breathe, listen to some calming music, just downtime where you're not needing to do anything. And that includes being on your phone. We deserve time to turn off our brains and allow them to relax and recoup from decision fatigue. Another way that decisions can be hard, and probably the last one we're going to talk about in this episode, because there's so many reasons why decisions can be hard, is something called choice overload, or also known as overchoice. It's a cognitive impairment that occurs when you're making decisions, and we are presented with too many options, and we can't easily choose them. There's just too many choices. For example, I'm sure a lot of you have had this experience, whether you're hanging out with a family member, your significant other, a friend, somebody that you could talk about decisions with. You say, "Hey, what do you want to eat?" They reply with, "I don't know. What do you want?" That question triggers choice overload. We are presented with an open-ended question and we are given too many choices. You could choose from hundreds of restaurants that are around you. You could choose from anything that your kitchen can make. You could choose nothing as well. There's so many options and you can't narrow it down, and it's too much. We spend energy and attention every time we make a decision to review the information and evaluate it and make comparisons. This is something that our brains do, and it takes a lot out of us. So when we have too many choices, our brains physically cannot comprehend that many analysis of things and just shut down. They're like, "Nope, I'm done. I can't think of anything anymore." There is a happy medium though, because if we don't have any options, we have no choices, we feel shitty. We are unhappy because we have no choice. We have no agency as a human. But there's a perfect middle of having just enough options that make us happy. So instead of having no decisions on what you get for dinner, maybe you have 3 decisions what you want to eat for the meal. Okay, 3. I can work through choosing through 3. But then as it starts increasing, our happiness goes down again because that is too much. There's a perfect medium. And part of combating choice overload is getting to that medium. So let's talk about, how you can combat that in your day-to-day life and really get a handle on limiting your options so that you can feel happy when you make a decision. One of those is setting parameters around the time that you give decisions. So you might feel overwhelmed by how much time you have to make a decision. If you set up parameters of I need to make this decision in 30 minutes, you are giving yourself that a lot of time to make a decision. So you can't just endlessly explore options. You can't waste that energy. You have 30 minutes to decide. Obviously, for big decisions, you need more, but I'm just giving an example, Let's also use an example of other parameters you can set. Let's take Dave. Hi, Dave. Dave wants to buy a new car. There are so many choices. How is Dave going to decide what choices he's going to make for a car. Well, he set up a parameter for himself saying, I want the decision making to buy a car to be fun. So, what does Dave do? He does research that makes him happy, makes it fun for him. Maybe he doesn't like research. Maybe that doesn't make him happy. Then he focuses on doing test drives. He's making the decision of doing the test drive to see how he likes the car. He's making it fun also by getting in his friends and family on it. Maybe he sets up some sort of betting system, like, hey, which car do you think I'm gonna get? Or like, hey, which color of car do you think I'm gonna get? Involving his community and making it fun for him. So fun is a parameter. As long as you give yourself a timeline on how much energy and time you want to devote to making a decision, that will help limit your choices. But make sure you stick with it. So if you're like me and you have a hard time picking about what you want to make for dinner, give yourself 5 minutes to explore each option, rather than just sit there and feel overwhelmed. You have 5 minutes of dedicated time and energy that you're putting into that, and you're making a decision. Another way to combat overchoice is trusting your intuition. We have our intuitions for a reason. Our bodies naturally developed that for a reason. Our bodies tell us the things our minds don't want to hear. And if you want to hear more about that, we covered a little bit in the last episode about emotions and how our bodies react to things. So, good way of doing this is let a decision sit for a while. So, this decision could be one that you've thought about and you picked it, or it could be a decision that you literally just picked out of a hat. Like, I know I do like a coin toss sometimes to decide something, and then I see how I feel about that. I really sit with it and listen to what my body is saying. Am I feeling disappointed by this decision? Am I feeling elated? Listen to it and evaluate your decision and change it if you need be. For example, let's say my family, we're trying to figure out where we want to order from for dinner. We have top 2 choices. We have getting pizza or getting Taco Bell. So some nights I like pizza, some nights I like Taco Bell more. It doesn't matter. But we'll make a decision. If we're having a hard time, we'll just flip a coin, see how we all feel, and say maybe it landed on pizza. Maybe husband and I are a little disappointed. And that's telling us that we actually want to Taco Bell. That was our true decision. Our bodies are powerful, so listen to your intuition. We have it for a reason. The next thing is being aware of all or nothing. Very seldom in life do we get to change a decision. It's very seldom. But embracing that you can, it's not black and white, can help with overchoice. Knowing that you can change your decision after you've made your decision. So, make a decision, regardless of the outcome. Observe and change, depending on how you feel and how it impacts the people around you. Really sit with it and understand that, just because I chose X doesn't mean I still can't choose Y. And if you are facing a decision that has overchoice, and it's one of those decisions that you can't, change, you gotta take a step back, man. That sounds like a really bad decision-making skill. Yeah, step back. But you can learn from your decisions, and you can grow and improve and whittle down your choices and how you feel. You got this. You get this. After all, we make 35,000 decisions every single day. But I could keep going on about what makes decisions hard. But I want to say ultimately, decisions are hard because all of the decisions in life we make requires us to go through a decision-making process. Process. This process is complex, requires a lot of mental energy, can be difficult, and if you struggle with any steps for making a decision, it affects the whole decision-making process. Some of these steps go super quick, and you don't even need to think about it all that much. And for some decisions, you need to really put that time and effort into it. Decision making is a skill that we learn as we grow up, and the more we practice it, the better we get. But the caveat is we have to practice in a healthy manner. I'm not talking about just choosing randomly or, letting other people decide for you all of the time. It is an active skill that requires work and effort that you need to put into it. So, I want to take some time and run down the process of decision making and help you understand the individual steps and help you be more mindful of these steps when you're making decisions, because it is very important. Very important. Especially for big decisions. These steps, just personally, have helped me quite a lot in my own personal life with my big decisions that I need to make. So, the first step you do is identify. Take a moment and figure out what the heck you're making a decision about. What are you making a decision about? Are you making a decision about what color to wear for today? What outfit? Okay. That sounds like a good definition of it. Can you define the nature about it? Are you trying to decide if you want to dress according to the weather? Or are you trying to... What are you really getting out of that decision? Are you deciding this because you want to wear something that suits you? Or are you deciding it because you want to wear something that's comfortable? Give yourself as much clarity as you can on what exactly you're deciding about. I'm not saying you need to list out all of your options now, but the core decision, what is it? This is what identify is for. The next step is information. To make a healthy decision, we need information. And if you do not have information, then you are making an unhealthy decision. So please, inform yourself on any decision that you are making. Unless if it's something that you already know, if you're picking out your favorite meal for the night or something, you know which one's your favorite. If you just think about it for a couple of seconds, because that's in your brain. But when you're making larger decisions that are harder, really dive into understanding all of the different components about the decision and informing yourself on that. As you gather information, you kind of naturally go into the next step, which is alternatives. As you gather information on your decision, your core decision, you get options. You get your choices that you decide from. For, let's say, example, you are wanting to apply to colleges, and you start looking at all of the different colleges. The different colleges are your options, and you're gathering information on them. And during the step of alternatives is listing out all of the alternatives. List out all of the paths that you can take for that decision. Even if your gut reaction is, I hate that, list it out. Because listing all of them out that you have fully got the information for will help narrow it down and help you understand what you're getting out of this decision. So once you have all of that, you have all of your information, you have the core question of your decision, you have your choices, it's time to weigh them. It's time to take all of the alternatives and all of the options you have listed and weigh them against each other. So, ask yourself, how do you feel about this choice? If it's one of the ones that your initial gut reaction was, oh, I hate it, mark it. Say, I hate this. Or what if it's something that you first thought you would love and then realized as you gathered information that, oh, I don't think this is a good fit for me anymore. Mark it. Put it on there so that you can tie it to all of your options. And then start figuring out how they tie into your core values. So for example, one of my core values in life is helping others. And when I was trying to decide what I wanted my content to be, I weighed my decisions on how can I help others as one of my core values as a human being. And if you don't know your values, please take some time to explore them. There's myriad of options online to discover what your values are and what is important to you. Because if you can't make a decision based off of what's important to you, how are you knowing that you're making a decision for yourself and not just for some random entity that you don't care about? So place them in a priority order, like which ones are the most tying to your values, which ones are the most appealing to you, and get all of that written down. Please actually write this down. It'll help you so much. And now finally, you get to choose. You get to take a look at your alternatives, take a look at the decisions, the possible outcomes, sit with it and choose. Take all of that information, all of that knowledge, and say, this is the one that I want. This is the one that fits best for me right now. Your top choice might not be the one that you end up choosing, because maybe that one isn't a perfect fit for your life right now. Maybe you need to compromise and maybe choose something from the middle of the list, or a combination of things. It really depends. But this is where you sit down and decide. Next step is taking action. You actually gotta do something when you decide. Isn't that magical? If you're applying to colleges, you gotta actually apply to colleges if you decided on a college that you liked. Decisions require action. So take that action. Take it. Do it. And then once you take that action, I want you to take this final step, because not enough people do this final step. I struggle with it and I want to get better at it. And that is review. So after the decision has been made, you have taken the actions that you need to reflect and see how it played out. Was it the best choice that you could have done? Did it pan out in the way that you wanted in terms of consequences or benefits? Does it fulfill the core decision that you needed from the identify step? Doing this review step is what makes us learn from our decisions and helps us improve on making decisions in the future. So really take some time and sit down after you make a decision and review it and really learn from it, because that's how we grow as humans. It's magical. Some things that you should know for those decision-making progress, those steps that I listed, which was, identify information, alternatives, weigh, choose, action, and review. I want you to know that you cannot go back and forth between the stages. That will increase the difficulty of decision-making so much. If you are weighing all of your information, all of your options, and then you're realizing, these aren't actually applying to the decision that I need to make, you have to redo everything. You have to go all the way back to identify and then go back through information and then go through alternatives. You have to go through all of those steps so that you can make the best decision that you are making. Because decisions already take a lot of mental energy, and just happen between all of those steps in out of order, it takes more energy out of you and it makes your decision-making process worse. So please don't give decisions more energy than they already take. Go slow if you have to. It's okay to go slow. It's okay. I promise. I promise. Promise. Decisions can have a lot of complexity, a lot of uncertainty, and consequences wrapped into them. And those things, as well as, the other things we talked about, can make each step harder and harder and harder than it needs to be. All of those factors will continue to deplete resources in your brain. So please identify those things when you're identifying your decision. So, for example, you're trying to decide something and you know you have decision fatigue right now. Write that down. You know you're going to have overchoice with this decision. Write that down. Identify it so that when you go in to the rest of the steps of the decision-making process, you have that information that you can be aware of and know that it goes slow. So take it slow. You've got this. I promise. I promise you, you've got this. But we've got through quite a lot of information on decisions, haven't we? We've talked about decisions, our brain, some factors that make it hard to make decisions, and, well, steps for healthy decision making. I do want to make a quick note is procrastination. So, do you want to know something? Procrastination, still a decision. It might feel like you're putting off a decision, but it's still a decision. You're making a decision to remain undecided. You're not freezing the decision. You're not pausing it in time. The decision was still made because you're deciding to procrastinate. Even if it's something of like, your brain is overwhelmed and you're like unable to make a decision. Make a concentrated effort and say, I am deciding to take a break right now and I will get back to this decision like tomorrow or something. Because that is healthier than saying procrastination, because procrastination is still a decision. Knowing that it is might make actual procrastination feel less appealing, because you're still making a decision. You're still expending that energy. So why not take it slow and use that energy in a healthy way? Procrastination can compound and make decisions even harder because then you're spending time on things that you shouldn't really spend time on, But that's kind of the bulk of decisions. And I will talk a little bit more about some other things, like ADHD. Because recently it has been a uprise in diagnoses of ADHD. I'm not saying that this is like an uprise of actual people with that ADHD because we don't know the actual number. And same with anything like that, once it stops being discriminated against, there is always that big spike of things, and then it sells out to the true number of people that have it. Like, for example, you could take a look at charts of left-handedness, and you'll see that once it stopped being hated on and shunned and ridiculed, you'll see an increase, and then it just goes nice and flat for the rest of the time, because that's how it works. But there has been an increase of diagnoses in ADHD, and I am one of those increases. I was about to say this year, but I'm realizing I'm recording this in 2024. So in 2023, in the summer, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And it helps me understand how decisions are hard for me, because ADHD can make decisions really, really hard. It's eye-opening that I got my diagnosis of ADHD, and I want to take this time to share my story and help you guys maybe question yourself and maybe say, maybe I am different, and that's okay. It's okay to be different. Like, it's great. It's great being different, but it's also good to know it and feel comforted by it. Like, just to keep it short, sweet, and simple, back in like fall of 2022, God, that feels like forever ago. I was doing really bad. I was really mentally broken. But thankfully, I got therapy and psychiatrists. And at that time in my life, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. You know, fun stuff like that. And as I progressed and got to a healthier state, I realized it wasn't just depression and anxiety anymore. My psychiatrist mentioned it this way, and she's like, you have ADHD tendencies, you know? And it never really occurred to me. It's like, I have always been a supporter for anybody who is neurodivergent, disabled, all of that stuff, because I love people. And one of my siblings is on the autism spectrum. And I was like, I never considered that for myself. I never really sat with that idea of the ADHD tendencies. And I went through the process of actually getting diagnosed. I have ADHD, specifically the inattentive type. And if you're still sitting here and being like, Pruitii, what does ADHD mean? Let me tell you. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And the NIH describes it as ADHD is a developmental disorder associated with an ongoing pattern of inattention, hyperactivity, and or impulsivity. The symptoms of ADHD can interfere significantly with an individual's daily activities and relationships. ADHD begins in childhood and can continue into the teen years and adulthood. And it's kind of an umbrella term for a lot of different things, but it means you struggle with attention. You struggle with essentially your prefrontal cortex. Hi, prefrontal cortex, it's me. I struggle with you, even though you're so important. But getting my ADHD diagnosis has really been life-changing for me. I've been on stimulants since I actually got the diagnosis, and it's been life-changing for me. Because I'll talk about stimulants in a little bit, but one of the reasons why I got diagnosed so late in my life, because I'm 28. ADHD starts in childhood. But I don't have the impulse, like the hyperactivity that people typically associate with ADHD, nor do a lot of women have the hyperactivity that is associated with ADHD, because most of our information on ADHD, a lot of our information on a lot of medical things is based off of just studying men. Yay! But women typically are diagnosed with ADHD so much later in life because we are put into social boxes for our entire childhood, and we learn unhealthy coping mechanisms that easily get us to functioning in the constraints of like schooling and college and that kind of life. And when we get our tools so comfortable and then we're thrown into the real world, it's like getting splashed in the face with cold water. You're like, everything that I thought that I knew from my life and how I functioned does not work anymore. Because we, as women, are put in this box by society, and it's awful, and I hate it. But I want to talk about how I describe my ADHD. And I've described this to so many different people, and they're like, do I have ADHD? But the way I view it is my brain is like a highway intersection with lots of different highways overlapping. So I'm not talking about like an intersection with 1 and 2 highways. I'm talking about like 20 different highways meeting in this one little area with a bunch of loops, bridges, rounds, everything. It's looking at it's visually stimulating. Like there's so much going on. And in my brain, there are always cars on on those highway intersections, always making sounds, always making motions, always making lights. And my brain cannot stay on one highway long enough to really get anywhere. It just bounces. It is not something that I can control. I could be cruising on the highway of, I don't know, like making dinner, cruising on that highway nice and comfy, and then all of a sudden, poof, I am on the highway of thinking about this one memory from high school that I can't like let go of. It happens without me controlling it. So despite having things that I love to do, like I love to cook, I love to make art, I love to make videos, I can't just sit down and do it. I could have everything all set up. I could have, everything prepared for me. All I need to do is just sit and do. I can't. My brain physically won't let me because my brain is on a different highway. It's frustrating. It's extremely frustrating. But I'm learning how it affects me and how it, shapes my life. Another part of ADHD is hyperfocus. So, hyperfocus is where you are doing something and you just lose track of time. Not in the way of like, oh, I'm enjoying myself so much. Yeah. Oh, look, I wasted 2 hours just having fun. No, this is hyperfocus where I could like just forget to eat lunch. I could forget that I need to pick up my child from school or something like that. Like I'm very mindful of the time that I have left to record this because I have to pick up my child from school. And I know that if I let myself go too much, I will just be blind to the time. One of my hyperfixations was my channel when I first started. I could just lose myself in all of the streams that I did, all of the videos. I was so fixated on making videos for my channel that time literally had no meaning. I skipped lunch, I stopped work, a bunch of different things. But now my channel isn't a hyperfixation anymore. Yay, I can't do that anymore. As much as I'd love to spend all of my time doing my channel because I know it makes me happy, I just physically can't because it's not my hyperfixation anymore, Another thing that impacts me with my ADHD is I can't change tasks easily. If I'm working on something and I am in the groove and I have to stop, I can't get back into the groove. I physically cannot. It's not a matter of like, oh, I'm not in the mood anymore. It's like I can't. So that's why, like, as a kid, I would just be endlessly drawing for hours and hours and hours. And once I got interrupted by, like, a mealtime or something, I just couldn't get back into drawing. I, like, physically could not. When people talk to me, I have constant thoughts going on. Not just thoughts of, like, trying to understand their conversation, understand what they're saying. I have random thoughts that just pop out of the blue that infect my mind that I really have to divert my attention away from because they just happen. That's how my brain functions. It's like constantly going, Fun little fact about me is I have 3 monitors for my computer, my desktop computer. And each monitor has something going on it at all times. Like right now, this very second, I have one monitor with OBS, my recording software, because, I need to record. And I look down at it to make sure that it's still working. And then, another monitor I have has all of my notes because I take notes for these guys. I don't have that memory storage in my brain to remember all of this. I have my notes on one monitor, and on the other monitor, I literally have a clock so that I can make sure that I'm not late for picking up my child. And when I'm working, I have all of the screens are taken up by doing something. so much. Like, most of the time when I'm playing a video game or something, I have YouTube videos going on. Like, unless it's like a heavy dialogue or rhythm-based game, I have that off. But like, it's constantly going. I constantly have something going on all of my monitors. Another way ADHD impacts me is I forget shit. I really forget things unless I write it down somewhere. I forget it. Like, in my notes right now, I have it written out exactly like this. Hell, even listing out all the ways ADHD affects me was hard. I needed to pull up the typical symptoms of ADHD and be like, no, that's not how it manifests for me. It's this way. So my brain can focus enough on recalling all of the things I've been learning. Oh, God. I don't remember writing that. But see, I struggle with memory, and a lot of memory stuff is hard for me. I have myriads of task managers. I have journals with things written on it, and if I didn't like being organized, it would be a mess, and I would just not know where I find things that I write down. And one of the last things that ADHD affects me, and I could keep going on and on, but I'm gonna stop it here, is intense emotions. My emotions can get really overwhelming at times, and then I just burn out from my emotions. I become like an emotional void after dealing with intense emotions. Like, for example, the Azura stream that I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with. I broke down crying a lot, and I cried a lot, and afterwards I was numb. It wasn't like the sadness stopped. It wasn't like I got happy again or I processed anything. It just, my brain was so physically overwhelmed by emotion that it just stopped working. But hey, don't fret too much. I know I said a lot of downing things in this video, but like, I'm good. I'm in a state with my ADHD that I'm getting more comfortable with and really learning how I can live with it. Stimulants are incredibly helpful for me, as well as therapy. Like, stimulants, oh my fucking God. I love them so much. They help me get the power to choose where I go on my big highway brain. I get that power back in my life to say, okay, I'm listening to this person, and I listen to the person. I can say, I am going to do the laundry today, and I do the laundry when I'm on my stimulants. It really helps me get power back over my brain, and I love it. I'm so thankful for my stimulants, man. But if any of what I said resonates with you and you're kind of noticing this unknown force that's really playing a hand in your life and it's really starting to affect you negatively, please seek medical professionals for help. There are people that have ADHD and don't notice negative effects in their life, so they never need a diagnosis or help. But if things in life are getting to the point where it's like impacting you negatively, please seek help. That's what I did, and I am so happy that I did, because my life has changed so much in the best of ways that I really can't describe. So, yeah. But okay, now you guys might be wondering, hey, this is a decision-making podcast. Why did you go on such a tangent about your ADHD? Well, ADHD and decision making don't go hand in hand at all. They're not friends. They're not friends at all, because when I'm not medicated, I don't have agency over my brain and how it goes and how it moves and where it decides to focus on. I don't have that agency. And when you're making decisions, you need that agency. We talked about earlier in this podcast that the prefrontal cortex is the core part of your brain that makes decisions. And while it's not universal and it's only been shown in studies, people who have ADHD, their brains have an association, or wow, let me reword that. Brains of people who have ADHD have shown an association with weaker function and structure of circuits in the prefrontal cortex, meaning that it's literally weaker than the neurotypical person. Studies have also shown that people with ADHD have slower prefrontal cortex maturation, meaning that it gets to maturity slower than the rest of the average population. So what does this mean? Prefrontal cortex, the core of making decisions, and how ADHD just functions, the two of them together, how do you think somebody with ADHD handles decisions? They don't. Not good at all. My husband's family all have ADHD, and there have been multiple times where somebody asks a question for somebody to make a decision, and we're all just sitting there like, how do I make a decision? Brain no good. Decision hard. It literally like stops all of our brains because we can't make a decision. It's kind of funny to see, but also really sad to see, because it's hard to live a life knowing that all of the decisions you make are exponentially harder. It's not just, oh, this decision is hard to make. It's, I physically cannot make a decision. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. Indecision is also a symptom of ADHD, but the exact cause of it is really unknown, and it's overwhelming at times. And I really wanted to share my story with ADHD and all of the things about decision making so that you guys can understand that you're not alone. You might not have ADHD. You might be neurotypical. You might just be exhausted from making decisions. But know that you are not alone, that there are other people that exist in this world, that maybe their circumstances are completely different from yours, but they share that same feeling of decisions are hard. They're hard. And I want you to embrace that. I want you to embrace the fact that decisions are hard, and that's okay. It's okay to have a hard time with that. But what's most important is what you do, knowing that it's okay to have them be hard. For me, one of the ways that I help with ADHD decision-making stuff is literally the coin tossing thing that I mentioned earlier. It takes away the agency that I lack sometimes and puts it into an inanimate object, and then I can observe how it makes me feel so that I can make a decision. I lean on others when I'm making a hard decision so that I can have their input and understanding and really uplift my brain. And I want to be there for those who also struggle with that. And that's kind of what I did in this video, this podcast episode. It's a lot less structured than the previous two episodes and what the rest of the episodes will be, but I'm incredibly passionate about all of this. And I really hope that the things that we kind of gushed about this episode are things that, can help you. To kind of recap, decisions hard. Lots of ways that decisions can be hard, and that's okay. What's important is knowing that they happen and taking steps to alleviate that. We also talked about the steps of making a healthy decision. So remember, that's identify, information, alternatives, weigh, choose, action, and review. And that procrastination is literally a choice. It's not something that you're getting a free pass for. It's a choice, okay, guys? It's a decision you're making to make it not a decision. And then the last thing we talked about, was my personal ADHD journey, how it feels for me, and how my ADHD impacts decisions, and what that means for how I changed my life around that. Yeah, that's a doozy of an episode, guys. And Look at the time on my third monitor. It says it's time for me to go and pick up my child. Thank you guys for sitting with me on today's episode of Let's Talk Mom. What is the next episode? I have it here. There we go. Loneliness. We're going to talk about loneliness next episode. So make sure when that comes out, you bring something to cuddle, because I needed to cuddle when I got all that research. I needed to cuddle. But I hope today is a wonderful day for you, and make sure to take it easy on yourself, especially when you're making decisions, because they are hard, but you've got this. I believe in you, and you should believe in yourself too. Do it. With that all said, thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing. Keep fighting your battles, and I will see you next episode. Bye!